right, and thank you so much for your patience. Welcome to the OpenText Live webinar series. My name is Gretchen Wurgis. I'm the Senior Partner Training Manager for OpenText Global Partner Program. And if you have any questions at all about the partner program, about OpenText, about this presentation once it's concluded, or if you have suggestions for future future OpenText Live webinar topics, you can email us at any time at partners@opentext.com. Today's presentation will be entitled Multilingual Module for Content Server Connect with SYSTRAN. But before we begin the presentation, just some housekeeping. I'd like to remind everyone that we do record every webinar in our series, and we post the recordings on our opentext.com events page. You can go to opentext.com/events or events and webinars, and you'll be able to see not just all of our upcoming webinars, you'll also be able to see on the recorded tab all of the historical webinars, including this one. So you'll be able to browse that content, and there's lots of great information there from our OpenText partners. And also, if you have a question at any time during the presentation, you can ask it by clicking on the Q&A icon on the top right-hand corner of your screen. You can then enter your question, and we'll be sure to get those answered throughout the call. All right, and with that, I would like to pass it over to Sean Murphy.
Thanks, Gretchen. Good morning. And thank you all for attending this morning our OpenText Live webinar, the Multilingual Module for Content Server connected with SYSTRAN. My name is Sean Murphy. I'm the Director of Sales for Cassia Content Management. We're an OpenText Global third-party technology member based in Ottawa, Canada. And I'm joined by Ben Shapiro. He's a Cassia partner, and he will be showcasing our multilingual module, which expands the out-of-the-box functionality of OpenText Content Server and really brings it to the next level for those requiring to work in a true multilingual environment. We're also joined by Gaëlle Bou. She's the Manager of Business Development with SYSTRAN, and she will be presenting the SYSTRAN Neural Machine Translation. Again, any questions, they can be directed to me for Cassia. If I don't get to them during the presentation, I will reach out to you this week and answer them right away. Any questions directed towards SYSTRAN can be chatted as well to Gaëlle Bou. Okay, and we're going to start with the first slide. So multinational corporations and organizations now have assets in multiple languages, yet they lack the tools to leverage that information. You know, documents are being published in different languages. They're being stored in different countries. Employees work in one language while their counterparts work in another. And in today's day and age, all this information needs to be accessible and understood by all. And with Cassia's Enhanced Multilingual Module, or EMLC, we've extended the out-of-the-box core content server features even further, streamlined business processes, and will help maximize your return on investment with your own OpenText content server software. And today, we're going to show you how we can do just that for your organization by showcasing 3 core features of EMLC integrated with SYSTRAN machine translation that will allow your organization to work effectively in a true multilingual environment and break the language barrier. I'm going to turn it over to Ben Shapiro, again, Cassia partner, who's going to walk through some of the 3 core features with you.
Thanks, John. Okay, so I can do the slides here. Excellent. So typically we do a live demo at this time. However, we do have a lot of slides to get through. So in lieu of a live demo, we've put them into slide format, and we'll be talking to those. So as Sean said, there are 3 major features of the of EMLC, the multilingual module for content server. There are other features as well, but these 3 are sort of the big ones that, first of all, that demo well, and as well that are sort of the big gains of the module. So the first one, the core of the module, brings multilingual metadata to content server. So for those of you that use content server already, you may know that with content server you can have, out of the box, you can have multilingual names and descriptions of objects. So your folder names and so on can be multilingual. If I'm in as an English user, I see English information. If I'm in as a French user, I see French, and so on. So that's nice. However, it doesn't extend out to the full product. And one of the big areas that we saw for as a gap is that for attributes. So a lot of companies obviously use additional metadata in order to help their users find content in the system and otherwise tag it. So one of the implications of not having multilingual metadata out of the box is that when you have a disparate user population that uses, perhaps you have some English users, you have some German users, you have some Japanese users, or what have you, if content is tagged by one user, it may not be really usable by another. And when you have a fixed language, say text drop-downs and so on, you may be limited in how you actually present that information as well. On the screen in front of us, we have an example of core content server. This is the Smart View, which more and more people are becoming familiar with. It is, you can see here we have a list of files on the left, and on the right we have a column that is being put in the system. Now this column surfaces some metadata. So it lists, this is a typical bilingual approach to metadata in a core content server system, where the values have to be shown in both languages. So you can see here, we can see at the first one, for example, they use a French/English approach. Everything is in English except for the metadata. It's all kind of mixed up there. We have issues with regards to truncation and so on. It becomes relatively unwieldy, and this is just with 2 languages. If you can imagine with 3 languages or more, obviously you start to have larger issues. Plus there are certain language restrictions sometimes where, depending on where a user is based, different languages have to appear first and what have you. And there's obviously no way of being able to deal with that with the core product. So in this case, you have something where the metadata, which is supposed to help you find content or narrow down content more easily, unfortunately doesn't necessarily help in that case. Another example with the multilingual metadata, with monolingual metadata, if you will, rather, is on this page we see as well with facets. So this is the classic view. Again, we have the column on the right, it's the same column, but on the left as well, using facets. Facets are generally used to very easily narrow down your search for content. Now in this case, again, out of the box content server, you have some restrictions with how you can approach it, and unfortunately, if you have, in this case again, only 2 languages, if you have more, it becomes much more unwieldy and so on. There are additional implications, as I said, with truncation, and if you have visually impaired users who are using screen readers and so on, obviously that has an impact as well. So when we have the multilingual metadata, we're using the multilingual metadata from the module, obviously tidies up that interface very nicely. So here's an example of a screen using EMLC, again a smart UI, and we can see that, okay, I'm in as an English user on this screen, all the content's in English. I can very quickly see, okay, which ones are, what type of documents they are based on the column and so on, and so on. The exact same view now as a French user, I'll just skip to the next slide. Now we can see everything is in French. So the language that I have as my preference as a user, that is what I see. And again, it's not just on these pages when we're browsing through, it surfaces everywhere that there is metadata. So this is when I'm adding content, if I have to add additional metadata. When I'm searching on content, I see information in my own language and so on. So by having the metadata down right at the core allows us to then start doing some interesting things. Okay, if I go in as a user and I tag my content as an English user, and then it's be able to leverage by a French user, well, that's great. But as well, how can we use this more? Well, to go one step further, we've implemented assisted search. Now, assisted search uses a translation engine under the covers. So, for example, with SYSTRAN, it can translate your search query into the other languages on the system. So on this screen, we can see, I go in, I've made a search query. We can see on the left side that I'm doing a search for safety report. Okay, and on the right-hand side we can see some results that came from that. Okay, well that's good, but I'm pretty sure there are other documents in the system, perhaps that were tagged by German users or users that have put values in another language. So now with the assisted search, what we can see is on the left-hand side there's a checkbox. It says assisted automatic translation. There's a checkbox there. If you check that with our module and you click search, it'll use your translation engine, SYSTRAN, for example, in this case, and you can see more results. So by partnering with SYSTRAN, we've been able to implement some very strong translation capabilities on the fly for your search queries. And it's not just on the metadata that we see in this particular slide. You can also translate on the content as well. So in your searches. So for example, if I want to search on safety report in the content or what have you, what this does is this allows you to find content that has your search queries, but may not have been tagged in your own language. Essentially, it allows you to leverage your assets regardless of who entered it or the language of the asset itself. And finally, under the covers, because I'm a techie, we'll show you what happens when you click the include automatic translations. On the assisted search, you can see that it's taken my search query, originally safety report in English, and it's translated it to the other languages on the system. For this particular page, we can see that there are, 6 different languages on the system, which is typically higher than most customers. However, regardless of whether you have 2 or 3 or 5 or what have you, it will translate your query and then be able to find the content, regardless of what it was tagged with. So we have the multilingual metadata. So maybe I tag it in my own language, but then regardless of my language, other people can find it with their own languages. And then we have the search where this allows it not only to find it based off of the metadata, which is, again, translated and so on, or on the content that's translated. But then the third main feature that we're going to show is this content previewer. So this is beautiful. The idea here is that perhaps you've received a link from somebody. They want you to check out a document, or it's come up in a search results. You open up the document. It looks like the one on the left, for example, and perhaps you are unable to read it. It's a document that's come up because of your search query, safety report in this case, and you need to know, is this something that is relevant to my search? Do I need to action further, or is it sort of a false positive, or what have you? So we've implemented this content previewer, this translation approach on the fly, where you can translate it to any language defined in your system. In this case, we've translated it to English. And then I can take a look, and I can see, okay, this is it's a food safety law. It's not actually relevant to what I'm doing, or yes, this is exactly what I'm looking for. The document translation, the preview here, is exactly that. It is just a preview. It's an HTML rendition. It is not considered a record, so it is transitory. So there are no concerns about if you translate a document of record or what have you. There are no implications with having to store that translation itself. There's some additional functionality that we don't have in the slides. Beyond this, these are the big 3, allowing you to greater leverage your assets, regardless of the language that they're in, and your population with regards to setting metadata and so on. Other functionality that's been implemented is things such as multilingual workflows. So that includes step names, instructions, attributes obviously within the workflow and so on, which allows you to use a single map across different languages, multilingual records management, multilingual reports, and so on. There's also a variety of web report tags as well to be able to leverage the information. Our goal is to make Content Server completely multilingual, and this in and of itself allows you to better use the assets in your system and make it more usable for your users. And that's it for me. So back to you, Sean.
Thanks, Ben. Well, now that we've seen some key features of the EMLC, what is the outcome of having EMLC for our clients? Well, our clients enjoy a competitive advantage of having all of this fully multilingual metadata. They enjoy corporate gains. They have better and faster accessibility to all of their content, any foreign language content, any content that they have to deal with any of their departments. They have increased user adoption. Their users can work in their own language. They don't have to worry about working in multiple languages. They can work in their language and only their language and see content in their language alone. So again, just a quick recap of what does EMLC provide your organization? The content viewer that we saw, that we can translate transitory documents on the fly. The assisted search, where we can look up documents and any content with the search using the different languages. Think of the access to information and benefits that would have with your organization. The multilingual metadata for greater user adoption, and the facets and columns and whatnot that we saw. And then we did touch on a little bit, Ben mentioned that some of the other features that we didn't present today, the multilingual reports, the workflows. Again, workflows can be started in one language, edited in a different language, and used by a third party or a user down the road in a completely different language. News channels as well. We do news channels for inter-company communication that can be translated on the fly, and live reports as well. So can your organization benefit from even just one of these features? We think so. And what is your organization going to do to effectively be scalable if you're working with multiple languages without these features? We've seen the impact with just 2 languages. If your company is going to be looking at a third language or more, it starts to get quite ugly. And we think we have a product here that would make all of that streamlined and much more effective for your workplace. I encourage you to reach out and schedule a personal live demo with your OpenText account executive or with Cassia. If you don't have an account executive, we can definitely put you in touch with one. For those of you that are attending Enterprise World, we will be there as well, and we'll be demoing our product live. We're at Pod 102. And that concludes my portion of the presentation. I'd like to thank you very much. You can also visit our website at cassiacm.com. We have a couple other modules there as well. We don't have time to showcase them. And now I'm going to pass it off to Gaëlle Bou. She's the Manager of Business Development for SYSTRAN, and she's going to present the neural translation and machine translation features to you as well. Over to you, Gaëlle.
Hello, everybody. I'm very pleased to thank you for this great presentation of this use case. It's just amazing for me to see how multilingual capability is used in new application. I think it's a stronger part of the presentation of the webinar, but don't leave. I will try to bring some information also, but I would say that now, sorry, my goal is to pop the hood and to try to bring to you some information on the technology behind, because in MT machine translation there is many things that occurred recently, so it could be interesting to share that with you. Okay, so just a few words about SYSTRAN. So SYSTRAN is quite an old lady. We have 50 years. We celebrate that this year. And we've always been a pioneer in this technology of language, natural language processing, machine translation. And that's why that we are very technology innovation oriented, because we initiated the various phases of the evolution of the machine translation. And today we arrived to a very exciting generation of translation engines, based on the latest advances of artificial intelligence. So I will explain a little more on that in the next slides. So just about our organization, SYSTRAN is on 3 continents with offices in Paris, where we have our R&D center, San Diego, and Seoul. Okay, we are 200 people, including a majority of researchers, engineers, linguists. We work every day to enrich this technology because the technology is very important, but as we saw in this first part of the webinar, the data also. And so managing the linguistic data are as important as the way the technology will process them. So all these people enrich this technology and integrate all this in our products, and also our capabilities to adapt it to each of our customers. So today we cover over 140 pairs of languages, and SYSTRAN solutions are used mainly by global companies, and also, as you can see in the next slide, sorry for that. Yes. So today we are used by many global companies, but also defense and security organizations, where the manage the language, the understanding of information is really crucial, and also with translation agencies, because they are very they need productivity gains. So with the machine translation, they are really with a tool that helps them to do better human translation. Okay, so what is really important to understand with machine translation, all people know machine translation with some provider as Google Translate, Microsoft, etc. But the big difference here SYSTRAN brings to the market is the tailored aspect. Because when you use a Google Translate, and despite the problematic of security, which is very important too, there is also you access to a very generic translation. And SYSTRAN, our goal is to serve only businesses and really to provide a customized approach. So meaning that we are going to provide domain translations and really dedicated to a company. So we don't provide a generic translation machine, we provide a unique machine translation for each of our customers. And what is very important at SYSTRAN is that we have really this double expertise. So meaning technological one, so we are, as I said before, we are really research oriented, we invest a lot in research and development, but also we have many people who are really, who love languages first, and so we are very, very involved in the evolution of this technology, and to also bring their knowledge around linguistic aspects, which is quite complex. Believe me, and so we have this double expertise, and we are very proud of that because it's our strength today to be able to bring the technology, but with all the knowledge we had since now, so for 50 years now. So, if we talk about the news and the revolution we knew 2 years ago, so what happened in this area of machine translation? It's a new era because artificial intelligence arrived in the language processing world, and it brings many interesting things. So with why this happened at this time? Because of the convergence of 3 phenomena. So the big data, the progress in algorithm of artificial intelligence, and also the computing power of machines, because you need really computing power to be able to work with this AR in languages. So these 3 phenomena allowed artificial intelligence to be applied to text and to translation. And so what is very interesting with that new era is that it brings a brand new generation of machine translation. So machine translation has experienced in the past several technological periods. Of course, you had at first time what we call rule-based technology. It was really around rules, grammatical rules, linguistic rules. Then you had this big bang with statistical machine translation, and so the Googles and the Microsoft bring with big data, and so it's really a question of statistics, meaning if the translation has been done before, but it's not very smart. And now we are this neural machine translation, which is really near of the brain, not a real brain of course, but it's a neural brain, and it's really something very strong because he learns. He has the capacity to learn, and he changes everything. So meaning that you give him the right data, it will be learned by itself. So you don't say to the machine what she has to do, but you, I said she, it's the demonstration that it's quite human. So it has the capability to learn a language, and to learn not a generic language only, but to learn, for example, a very technical language, a pharmaceutical language, or all the domain you need. So with this technology, we provide a new product, a new technology, a new machine translation engine, which is calling pure neural machine translation. So we launched that now 1 year ago, or 1 year and a half. And now it's really the, how to say that, it's really the standard now of the market. So neural machine translation, what is interesting is that SYSTRAN believed in it at the very beginning, but then we have been followed by all the markets. So all MT providers now say that neural machine translation is really the future. So what is interesting on the business aspect is, as you saw in the previous demonstration of Cassia, it's one of the business case we can have. So meaning that translation is now a part of the business processes. It's really a flows, as you have other flows in your daily work. So it's transparent for many of the users. And as you saw in the demonstration before, it's not evident that there is SYSTRAN behind. It's just not visible, and it's very good. We love that, because it's when you open the lights, you don't know that it's this provider behind that. You consume a service, and so now it's really what is going on. It's going on with the machine translation. Is really something which is integrated in all the processes. So meaning to help companies to develop, of course, globally, but also to manage the customer services better, to provide new services, to also leverage the collaboration between their collaborators. So there are many use cases where the translation now is integrated, and in a manner that is really, really transparent and really simple to use. Just to explain what we suggest on the market, what we sell, to be clear, it's a solution, a complete solution, a comprehensive solution, which is really something what is important to understand is it's a server solution. So meaning that or we install it on the customer premises, or we hosted it, but in a private cloud. So the security of this solution is really one very important aspect. That's why we work with companies, with organizations in defense and security. And also what is important to understand is that this server is accessible from many, many different tools. So you saw the example with Cassia before, and in OpenText solution, and you can have also many connectors to many tools, and it helps all the users to use the machine translation again very easily, smoothly. And I want to end with this, how to say that, this value, really high value we had on top of the technology is what we call specialization. So when you have a machine translation engine, it could be first a generic one, so something which we will train by ourselves with our resources, or generic corpus. And then with this neural technology, what is great is we have the ability to learn, to inject data from the customers or the very in-domain data to the machine, and the machine is going to learn and to improve, of course, the translation based on the learning of this specific data. So it's very strong, and as you see on the right, the right here, yes, you see that what we call blue score. Blue score is a scoring specific to machine translation, and what is very interesting here is to see the comparison between what are the generic engine and the quality of the generic engine, and what brings the specialization today. And as you see, even if you don't know the blue score, you see on the graph that there is a very high improvement in terms of quality. So in conclusion, I would say that machine translation exists since a very, very long time, but right now we are at a step where it's really easy to integrate it in third-party application, and also the quality of the translation is just great and really adaptable to each context, and that's just the beginning for me. So we are living a very exciting time in machine translation, and the multilingual challenge is more and more not anymore a big challenge. It will be, our goal is to really offer the capability to all organizations to be multilingual compliant, to be easy to talk in any language, the communication should be not stopped or blocked or yes, by the language. So it's really our mission, and with the technology and all the knowledge we have here, we are very, and the partnerships, because as you see, what is very strong is to be able to collaborate with other applications. We are sure that we can have a chance to reach our goals. So it's our mission, and we are very, very happy with that. Thank you all. It's okay for my part.
Well, thank you very much, Gaëlle. You're definitely passionate about machine translation. Again, if anyone has any questions, you can direct them by email. If you hadn't had a chance to chat them, you can email myself for Cassia or Gaëlle below. There's your email addresses there. And I'll be reaching out to all the attendees as well today. And I'm going to leave it with Gretchen just to recap again any of the partner questions you may have. She can fill you in on those.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Sean. Thank you, everyone, for your attendance. And just to remind you, within the next 24 hours, you should be able to see this recording posted on our events page at opentext.com/events. And you can check out also what we have coming up. All right, so thank you so much, everyone. Have a great day.